are super excited. We've got some fans on here. I'm sure we could have like an hour of testimonials from some of the people on here of how much they enjoy Mr. Conrad's classes. You can get online and read his bio, and please do check out his books. Not only do my kids love them, but I really enjoyed them. They're not just kids books. They're amazing and teach good values, good morals, have good meat in them. So check them out. It's at conradlit.com.
LanceConradBooks.com.
LanceConradBooks.com. There we go. And so you can see his bio on there, all the amazing things he's done. But I think the thing that speaks to me the most is when my kids came home from class, whatever he did, from zombie apocalypse class and man skills class to chemistry or physics or writing, they came home excited to learn. Like they just, sometimes you say, what'd you learn at school? I don't know. How was it? Fine. It was not like that. It was like talk the whole way home. And then I learned this, and then did you know this? And then, oh my gosh. And they would just, it was amazing. And they would come home and they were excited to dig deeper and to get into the subject and do their homework. I didn't nag my kids to do homework. I just didn't have to. It was beautiful. That's what you want as a parent, for them to be inspired. And when I asked Jerem, like, what's your favorite class? And he was like, anything Mr. Conrad teaches. It's like not about a subject. And he said, it's about I should have had him come and tell you, but it's about how passionate the teacher is. And if the teacher cares about it and is excited about it, they make it interesting. So there's my little plug for him. I'm super excited. I hope we can get tons of people to get on this class and have a good time, have our kids get really deep into writing and literature. So I will turn the time over to Mr. Conrad, and you're welcome to type your questions in the chat as you think of them, and I'll throw them at him at the end, or you can raise your hand and ask them at the end also. So here we go.
Thank you so much. I suppose how I'd want to go at this is tell you a little bit about myself, kind of do an introduction, then tell you what I would be interested in doing for this class. I suppose what is most relevant is what I am and what I am not. What I am is I am an author. I write books for a living, and I am an intensely curious person. Consistently, everyone underestimates what I mean when I say that. I really do mean that everything fascinates me. You know that one subject that, like, you light up when anybody mentions it? It's like that for everything. And, with these boys, obviously most of the time the stuff that we get really excited about, is knives and fires and big historical battles. And I am fascinated by all that. I am also fascinated by lawn care, knitting, just everything fascinates me. And it sounds like the feedback I get from these parents is that that is a little bit contagious, and that makes me happy. I'll admit I don't think that people are curious enough. I feel like it's probably one of the main reasons why I actually really enjoy working with kids. I've worked with kids my entire life, I guess ever since I was one. And I think what I like about it is kids are so curious. I don't want to say I've given up on adults, but kind of. So many adults feel like they've learned enough and they just work in whatever they're at. I love that curiosity that kids bring to the table. And that brings me to what I am not. I am not actually, in my own mind, a teacher. I am someone who loves to discuss and to share knowledge and to learn from others. However, in the classical sense, someone who is going to have a whole program and structure and homework and grades and points and all that sort of stuff. I have tried for years to develop that and have failed most magnificently. So I've not been able to enforce that kind of structure. So what you can expect from literally any class that I am leading, there's going to be a lot of discussion, and not all of it is going to be precisely on topic. Many of the kids usually figure out about halfway through that I'm a pretty easy mark. If we're supposed to be asking them about how their science project went, and they raise their hand and ask me how fuel cells work, we're probably going to spend the next 10 to 30 minutes talking about fuel cells. Now, the good news is that for a writing course, I feel like that is all part of the experience. There is no wasted knowledge when it comes to writing. Anything you can learn about anything will strengthen your writing just because it increases your understanding of how the world works, how people interact, everything about the whole world. So physics has to do with writing, history has to do with writing, magic tricks have to do with writing. Everything is under that umbrella. I think that's probably the main reason I became an author, is because I couldn't focus on one thing. I needed a profession that encompassed all things. And so, yes, that is something I feel like I have to bring up right off the bat. I'm not a teacher in the classic sense, at least as far as how I see things. So a lot of structure and things like that, I really have tried. I actually do see the benefit. I'm not even saying, oh, that's not how classes should go. No, I think there's a great benefit to some structure and order. But I can't do that. So, like I said, there will be a lot of discussion and things of that ilk. Now, my general views on education, or really they're not actually views on education, they're views on raising children, how boys become men, and the gender equivalent for the girls, is that drive comes from self-esteem. Everyone has big dreams. And if they believe they can do it, they will work towards those dreams. They will do things to make that a reality. If they do not believe that they can do it, they will do nothing. They will sit in their rooms and play video games because that is what they can do and what they believe they can do. And so I believe that drive comes from self-esteem, and self-esteem comes from accomplishment. You can tell a kid all day long that they are smart and special and glow in the dark or whatever else you want to tell them. But at the end of the day, they need accomplishment. They need to be able to point to something and say, I have done that. My daughter 3 weeks ago cleaned out a section of the garage. She's still talking about 3 weeks later because that was her section of the garage, and she did that hard thing, and it took moving heavy boxes, and she did that, and she was proud of that. And so I am deeply of the mindset that anything, be it education or life, there needs to be something where the kids can do something, and they can feel like they have done something hard, because that is going to add to literally every other facet of life. Okay, that was just an example of the kind of tangents I tend to go off on. It's a thing. Now, specifically about a writing course. Now, there are so many things we could talk about, so many different facets of writing and grammar and spelling and all this sort of stuff, and I'm actually a big fan of all of them. However, as I was thinking about what I could teach for this class, I had to think about what I could offer specifically. And so this class would be based around my own views on how to make your writing unique. We can talk about all the basics that help put the structure of a story together. But I feel like the key thing we're looking for in writing is to be able to connect with the reader. And in my mind, that focuses around 3 elements. And I'm going to be using words here that I have kind of repurposed. Okay, so I don't necessarily mean these in the classic sense. But yes, I would probably base the class around these 3 elements. The first one would be poetry. Now, I do not necessarily mean here's 4 lines that rhymes in 2 places, there you go. Not that kind of poetry. I mean using language to convey feeling. I've always said that if you miss the human element in writing, you've missed everything. If you're not connecting with your reader, it really doesn't matter how interesting the plot or the magic or the tech is. Like, none of that actually matters if they don't connect with this character. And there are a few things more human than emotion. So being able to show that emotion in writing. And so that's just, again, kind of a term that I have repurposed. When I say poetry, I'm talking about using words to try to convey emotion. The second element that I would talk about is speeches. I do love a good speech. Winston Churchill and I think we really would have got along. And just like a poem communicates feeling, a speech communicates intent. The will to do something and the invitation for others to join you. And unless it is your goal to write the world's most boring story, your characters are going to do something at some point. And your reader deserves to know why they're doing that and to feel that intent, that will. I think it is incredibly important. So, that's the second thing, speeches. And once again, I'm not talking about somebody up on a podium giving a speech. It could just be 2 friends talking to each other on a log, right? Explaining why I have to go and save the princess or kill the princess. It depends on the princess, let's be honest. Okay, but it's going to be something that I got to go do, and you know what, buddy, I need your help. And that is a speech, and it communicates intent. So we have feeling and intent that we are trying to communicate. And the last one is a story. I do love a story. Now, once again, I do not mean that word in the classic sense. There are far too many people who have a story as a sequence of events. This happened, and this happened, and he said this, and she said that, and this happened, and then it was all over and goodbye. And no one cares. The way I'm using the word story is to communicate an experience, right? There are things that I have experienced, things that I've done that you won't do, right? Either the person was different, the circumstances were different. It's impossible for you to have that exact same experience because you're not the exact same person, the exact same situation. But a story is when I try to take that experience and let you experience it as well. Those are my absolutely favorite reviews on my books. I get a lot of good reviews on my books, but my absolute favorites are when they say, I couldn't put it down. That's when I know that I've done my job as an author. When you almost feel like the story is happening to you, when you've been pulled into that world. Well, that is a skill that I think can be taught and developed, is the ability not just to list events, but actually to tell a story, to share an experience. That's why I feel like there's a lot of crossover with a lot of the other tangents we go off of, because I honestly feel that to share an experience, it really, really helps if you've had experiences. Drives me crazy when I have people say, I don't have much to write about. Well, go out and live some more, right? Go out and have some experiences, do some things, try some things, get dirty, fail. I spent most of my life failing. It's been awesome, right? My students can tell you I'm one of the world's greatest failures. Not trying to brag. I'm just saying I'm up there. Okay, so yes, all of these real life things I feel of a necessity need to be part of that storytelling process. And so if you can do these things, if you can communicate feelings and intent, and most of all, if you can weave these things together and actually tell a story, if you can share an experience, help me understand the sort of things that you have been through, that is the art and the purpose of storytelling. And like I said, I'm not going to give you a full-on syllabus. Here's what we'll do day 1, day 2, day 3. However, that I think will give you the general idea of what I would be trying to accomplish and what I would want your students to come away from this course with. Now, at this point, I do tend to go off on what I care about, but that's not always what other people care about. So I always like to take a break and answer some questions, whatever people would like to know. If we've had any.
Yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand if you have one.
If they have a hand.
How much writing will we be doing weekly, do you think?
Oh, that is an excellent question. How much writing weekly? Absolutely some. We'll try to strike a balance there, because on the one hand, I don't think that there should be so much that you get sick of it. That happens a lot of times in writing classes, like, all right, welcome to the writing class. Write me 10 pages on what you did this summer. And you hate it already. And so we'll kind of try to avoid that. On the other hand, writing is not some magical talent and there is no secret to it. We'll try to provide some guidance. However, in the end, to learn how to write, you must write. It's like trying to become a great basketball player by watching basketball. That doesn't work. It's never going to work. And so there will absolutely be writing every week. How much there is probably going to scale a little bit. So I don't think I can commit to a hard, you're going to write 5 paragraphs every day. Like, no, I'm not even going to tie myself down to that. If anything, it'll be a little bit individualized, but there will absolutely be writing. A writing class that doesn't include writing is, well, I guess the word pointless comes to mind. You do actually have to do it. Again, that whole idea of accomplishment. I mean, I've written 6 books now. The 6th wasn't that much easier than the first. Writing books is hard. It's always been hard, and fingers crossed will always be hard. If it's easy, it becomes boring. Sorry, a bit of a tangent, but that's something kind of broken in human nature. We seek out what is comfortable and boring. Comfortable and easy. But easy becomes boring and comfortable becomes weak. And so it's kind of a self-destructive tendency. But yeah, lucky for me, writing is hard for me and always has been. And I think we can actually use that to our advantage, because if writing is hard for you, good. That means that you are going to feel something. You are going to feel like you've done something when you actually push through and create a story that you're proud of. Excellent question.
So what kind of literature will we be reading?
Hey, Jason. Good to see you, man. You got older. Much, much older. Holy smokes, old man. But it is good to see you. Okay, what kind of literature will we be reading? Mostly it's going to be stuff connected to what we're trying to cover. So for instance, when we're focusing a little bit more on speeches, we'll probably be reading speeches, right? Undoubtedly, we're going to hit some Winston Churchill, maybe a little bit of Cicero, Frederick Douglass for sure. Some of my favorites, some of you might have actually already run into these having classes with me. But absolutely, it'll mostly be crafted towards what we're working on. I don't think that we're going to take on a big book. Like, I'm not going to have everybody read War and Peace by Tolstoy so we can read it. More likely, we're going to aim towards just little things that I know you can read from beginning to end within a week, and then we can unpack it and pick it apart the next week. So we're probably going to do, more like short stories, poems, speeches, and draw heavily from history and things like that for those. Does that answer the question? If you were looking for a complete list, I do not have one at this point, partially because this meeting is part of, well, it's the first meeting, to be honest. So part of this, we're actually coming up with the ideas of how we want to do this. So honestly, if somebody says, hey, I really think we should do this, at this juncture, it's early enough that would be considered. But yeah, that's how I would see it, is just more a series of smaller ones. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I have a question. If anyone else has one, just jump right in, get it ready while I'm asking the question. So what do you think the best thing they can do before class starts, or just kind of if they're wanting to, I don't know, do something with their writing time during the day? Do you have a suggestion for them?
That depends on how you mean. If we are talking about they're already in the course and, just waiting for class to start, that sort of thing, then I would recommend just writing. A lot of times people way overthink what they should be writing. You have to understand, if I'm, learning how to play basketball, to go back to that analogy, you don't sit and hold the ball and think about shooting it. Just shoot it, right? And you'll probably miss. And then you go and you pick it back up and you go again and again and again. So just writing whatever comes to mind. How your day went. What do you think the future would look like if the robots take over? What would happen if you shaved your head? What people would say. Just going at it. And that's actually part of it. I'll probably use my Word of the Day series in this, where that's a video from history that teaches a specific word. Vocabulary is very useful in writing, obviously. But at the end of each one of those, there's a writing prompt. And so they get a chance to kind of warm up those muscles and write a little bit about something that doesn't necessarily have to do with any sort of assignment, but just kind of gets that going. Now, if we're not talking about that, if we're just talking about broad picture, what I would recommend to generally improve writing, first of all, live a great story. Don't be boring. Please. My students know that's how I always greet them, is tell me a story. Not how you doing, because it's not that I don't care, but I'd rather hear a story, right? Life is about stories. And so you should try things and probably fail at them. And then you should try again, and you should write about those things. And you should remember how these things made you feel, right? Defeat, victory, sadness, anger, resentment, irritation, like all these things are part of the human experience, and you should log those. A lot of times we experience these things and we just move on, like, no, think about it, right? There's that whole thing, like the classic stereotype of a psychiatrist, like, how did that make you feel? Well, that's very valid for a writer to actually sit and think about, okay? Now, the backfire of this is that it often ruins my feelings at the time. I found that, there's been times where I'm running late and everybody's yelling at me, and then the car breaks down. I'm standing on the side of the road and it starts raining, and I'm just like, oh, I just feel all this irritation. I start thinking about it, and then I start laughing at myself because I'm really just some guy having a bad day. And I don't feel irritated anymore because it's just absurd, right? It kind of separates me a little bit from those feelings when I'm just considering how they make me feel or how I'm trying to describe them, right? It's like a 10,000 bees in my soul, right? That's that poetry again, by the way. You don't just say I'm irritated, you say there's 10,000 bees in my soul. And that's, again, trying to communicate the actual emotion. Because let's be honest, sad, angry, irritated, contemptuous, these words don't actually mean anything. They don't create any sort of feeling in the reader. But if I talk about, you know, splitting a nail and it starts to go down into the quick, everybody starts to cringe. Like, we know what that feels like. That communicates a lot more than it hurt or there was, oh, such pain in my finger. Like, we don't feel any of that. So again, that's one of the things that you really want in writing, is to be able to communicate those feelings. And part of it is actually living life and doing stuff so that you have had those experiences to share.
That's awesome. I did not expect you to say that, but that is my favorite answer. I love it. It reminds me of the Million Miles in a Thousand Years. Have you read that?
I have not.
Oh, it's very good. Yeah. It's like an adventure, and he relates it to writing. So it's like a memoir or something of his adventures, but he's relating it to writing the whole time and what he's learning about writing and what he's weaving it in really nicely. Anyway, and Kip Cutler, it's an awesome book. Million Miles in a Thousand Years. I think maybe that's what he's talking about too. He was seconding it. Okay, one more question. Well, if someone else has a question, jump on, and then I'll ask mine if not. It takes a second to like.
What kind of like goals or accomplishments will there be for like the end of the year or just like the end of the class, you know? Like what kind of projects will we be working on and such?
Well, there I'm a little bit undecided myself, because there is a part of my brain that is straight up megalomaniac. Okay, there's a nice word of the day: megalomaniac. Someone who always blows things up to ridiculous proportions. My father is a megalomaniac, right? If he were to start a lemonade stand, it would be step one on ruling the beverage industry for the entire world. Like, there's no small projects. Everything expands very quickly upwards to entire empires. By the way, he's pulled it off a couple times. I wouldn't bet against him, but yeah, that's that megalomaniac sort of thing. So as I've been thinking about this class, one goal that I've thought about and I've tried to kind of rein myself in a little bit is actually having you write a book, like actually complete a novel. Mostly because it is really hard, and I spend all my time going around to schools and conventions and things like that, and everybody always says, oh, I started writing a book. And that's what everybody says. Nobody ever actually finishes one. And I think that would be just tremendous to have written a book. Even if you don't intend to actually become an author or anything like that, I feel like it's a tremendous accomplishment. Actually, when I first started writing, I wasn't trying to become an author. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And I was trying to impress a girl. It didn't work, but turns out I found that I really loved writing. And so, yeah, that's probably the megalomaniac, and I realize that I'm trying to tone it down, but at minimum, we would want to explore each of these different pieces, have you write pieces for that, right? You will absolutely write your own poetry, you will write your own speeches, you will write your own stories, but at some point in there, I'm going to start pushing towards some sort of capstone project. Now, if I successfully dial myself back a little bit, it probably will not be an actual book. Even though, how cool would that be, right? Right? Anyway, not the point. But it will probably be some larger type story, something that we can do and go through the rewrite process a little bit, because that is also an incredibly vital part of the writing process. So does that answer the question, Kip? He's nodding. By the way, Kip, if you had any requests or suggestions on that, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, I think that was the other thing I was going to say. If there's anything you guys are hoping for or wanting out of class, or that you would really love to get out of this class, hop in and tell us what that would be. And then we could, Mr. Conrad could throw out a couple days and times. Maybe I'll put an online poll when I get together, but we will record the classes also. So even if you can't make it to the time, the date and time, I mean, who wouldn't want to be live online at least, so you can ask questions, but you can watch the recording and then still be able to see class. So if there's anything they're hoping for or wanting out of class, and then dates and times. You can even type in what you're hoping for if you think of it while we're talking.
I've always found it kind of odd how comfortable I am with awkward silence. You know, those moments where, you know, people are still deciding who's going to go next and there's that awkward silence. I kind of like those moments. I just sit and soak it in for a moment. But I don't think that's normal. Very well, I'll ask a question. We've got, let's see, we've got Cole. Stuart might have wandered off. Kip. Do we have anybody else? Is Jason still there? I can't actually see who all's there. I'm curious, do any of you have any ambitions to write a book, or do you think that would be an interesting thing to do?
I
Cole,
think it
what
would
do you
be
think? Oh wait, who's that?
me, Josh.
Hey, Josh.
I think it would be actually, I think it'd be pretty fun. I have tried once with a friend, and as you said, we never really got to finishing it like most people, but it was pretty fun while we did it. We just like sort of just like couldn't really think up a way to continue it. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think we could take care of that. Like I said, I would be the very first to say that it is an incredibly ambitious goal. Okay, that is not something you would approach lightly. That being said, it would be pretty cool. Cole, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, writing a book sounds really cool. And like, who hasn't wanted to write a book, or like,
Right?
I haven't wanted to.
Yeah, I've had some ideas, but I haven't really, pursued them too much. So maybe I could make use.
Yeah, that could create an excellent framework to even base this class off of. Because if we knew that that's what we're going to be doing, we could start from the very, very beginning, kind of pointing towards that. So each little assignment that we did would contribute towards that larger project.
Yeah.
Kip, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I've also always wanted to write a book, but I think that is a pretty ambitious goal. Maybe we could do something, maybe not like a full-on novel, but just something smaller, like a happy medium between like a short story and a novel, or
The
even
word
just a
you're
short
looking
story?
for is the word you're looking for there is novella.
Novella.
Something around 30,000 words.
Yeah,
It's not too
sure.
bad. Yeah, that's doable.
Yeah,
It's an
just
interesting one.
something more doable. But that is definitely something that I would love to do, is actually finish a story. I don't think I've ever done that before. So
It is different. It is different. That's a unique feeling when you actually finish a story. Believe me, I know, because I've started a lot more than I've finished, and it is a unique feeling when you actually get one done. So I'm beginning to warm the idea. Anybody like categorically against it? Somebody listening in the wings here that I'm not seeing yet, who are like, no, I'm not. No interest in writing any sort of book or novella. Any votes against? All right then. Interesting.
No, Jeremy
I honestly,
wanted to.
yeah.
He voiced that too. I think the novella sounds a little less daunting, but you know, it may, even if you get them started and help them get over a couple humps when they have them, yeah, that'd be awesome.
No, we're going full on Brandon Sanderson.
50-hour book. 50
You never go Brandon Sanderson on the first book. Not even Brandon Sanderson went Brandon Sanderson on his first book. That is not something you do. But I will admit I'm very pleased. I did not expect everyone to be quite so on board with such an ambitious project, but I think that'd be really cool. And yeah, a little bit proud of you guys. Any other question, anything you would like to get from this course? So right now, as we've got it, we're going to be building these individual writing skills, and each of them contributing towards a larger project, individual project. I am actually opposed to writing by committee. So this is not something that everyone will contribute on. Nope. Your book is going to be your baby. And I will simply be supporting and guiding, but ultimately it will be yours. So my other question is, what else would you like to get from this class?
I have a question to do with that. So,
Hi, Josh's mom.
hi. So, in connection to with these kids getting older and ACTs and what are they called? The tests you take, the AP tests. Would there be any way to like bring that into context, or have that be a thing that's discussed, and how what they're learning would be applicable to those things, or how something they're learning could propel them into further studying or preparing for those things? There are still, most of these kids are probably still a few years away from that, but having to think about transcripts and those kinds of things now is starting to get me thinking high school mode, which is close to college mode, and just want to know how we can help prepare them for that. And maybe that's not this year's thing to worry about, but if you have any input on how we could go about that, get them ready.
I do, actually. And you're right that not all that falls into the scope of this class. There are some. The Word of the Day series that we were talking about, that is actually the word list we extracted from ACT and SAT word lists. So just the vocabulary we'd be dealing with would be helping towards ACT test prep. Now, that being said, I have actually taught multiple ACT preparation courses, and it was almost an entire course of its own. And we might be able to kind of sneak in some of that into this course, but if I'm going to be very real with everyone for a moment, the goals are somewhat divergent, because writing is about expression, creation. It's a very raw sort of process. Effective ACT prep, if I'm being honest, is about system manipulation. It is about understanding how tests are put together, how your own brain works, and how best to work those variables to create the optimal result. It is a lot more cynical, and I guess the word I'm looking for is cold than a writing course really should be. Now, that being said, I'm not opposed to teaching a course like that. I would probably try to do that in a, I don't know, 3 or 4 session seminar sort of thing. We could at least cover the basics.
Thanks. I agree with you. I'd rather, especially at this age, have organic, real growth happening than jumping through the hoops and figuring that out. So thank you.
Now, I will be honest, I see value in both. I learned at a very young age to manipulate systems. And this helped me. I was in public school, and so that helped me quite a bit to get good grades and good test scores, which in turn provided me with good opportunities, and so on and so forth. And so I really don't like how cynical this makes me sound, but I really do feel there is value in learning some basic, call it systems theory, understanding how and why things are put together and when to pay attention to such things. So like I said, I do actually see that there is a value to such things. I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, well, I won't be sucked into all this, you know, drone type stuff. Nah, I can be a drone when I need to be a drone. I just don't think that should be the core. That should just be one other bullet in the gun, so to speak. So yeah, like I said, I do actually see a value to it and would be perfectly fine with teaching it. It just doesn't seem like it doesn't seem in keeping with the spirit of this particular class.
Thank you.
So you kind of mentioned how to write good stories, you have to live a good story. I just felt like that is really important. Could that somehow be emphasized or included in
Like assignments?
Like I guess
Go
real
out and get injured this
goals,
week.
yeah, something like that. I don't know what
You'd have a hard time stopping me, Cole. Yeah, I have always believed that your most powerful writing is your most personal writing. It's got to mean something to you before it means anything to your readers. I mean, I write fantasy, but that's all just symbols, right? Writers use symbols. We dress it up. Maybe I talk about dragons, but, you know, that's just a symbol for bullies or bosses or something like that. And so I use a lot of symbols, but all of my books are incredibly personal to me, usually based on events that I have been through. And so yeah, I dress it up a bit, but that's the same kind of writing. If you're learning writing from me, that's the kind of writing I am going to teach you, is how do you take your life experiences and turn them into powerful writing. So yeah, we could even have something like, go out and sprint until you fall down. And when you can breathe again, write that. Now, I will try my best not to give any assignments that would lead to actual injury. More or less. But that there are many of the people I can see who are kind of laughing with me because they know that I am not as opposed as I should be to scrape knees and maybe the odd scar here and there. I do avoid anything that would be permanently injuring, but yeah, I don't know. I really do feel like failure and pain are just another part of the picture. And yeah, you can't protect yourself right out of your own life. And so, yeah, I would say as much as possible, we would be trying to draw from your own personal life experiences. Many of the writing prompts that I have attached to those word of the day script things, there's the writing prompt at the end. I would probably say a good 90% of them ask you to relate some sort of personal experience, some conversation you had, some sort of show that you enjoy, something from your own life. Because yeah, if you're learning writing from me, it's going to be about channeling your personal experiences into your writing.
Awesome. Kip has his hand raised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just curious, like, what does the class size look like as of now, if we have any sort of picture?
I have no bloody idea. This really is our first meeting about this class. All the conversation that has gone into this at this point is Harmony asked me, would you be willing to do something like this? And I respond with a resounding maybe. And we decided to have a meeting on Zoom with interested parties and talk it out. And that's where we are. You are part of the ground floor here, Kip. And that's why we're asking for suggestions and questions about what you would like to see, is because, yeah, this is still in its formulation stage. I would say that if we were looking off of what we have right here, I'm guessing it's probably going to be 6 to 10 students, and most of them I already know their names or I have renamed them. Now, that being said, there is a surge of interest in homeschooling and student-driven education, especially with all this pandemic madness. So we could very well be surprised, and we may end up with more. However, we'll make sure that there's still a personalized aspect to it, even if it does get a little bit bigger, or if we end up, I believe one thing that we might be able to offer, Harmony was going to be recording these, and so we might be able to just, maybe we have 10 students in our core group, but then we have, another 5,000-10,000 others who watch the videos after the fact. So a lot of that just plain isn't known, but I feel like we can deal with that to still make it a good experience.
If there are any other questions, tell us your dates and times that you're available.
All right. I believe that's mostly aimed at everybody else, but I'll start. If everybody could, in the chat, give some preferences. I can say on my end that we are most likely to make this work Wednesday and Thursday, and probably more towards the afternoon. My schedule has become a little bit more chaotic. That's why I respond with the maybe, because normally my day-to-day is traveling around to schools and speaking at assemblies and things like that, and that is how I pay my bills and keep a roof over my head and things like that. And this homeschooling thing has always just been a little side thing because I enjoyed it. Now this year, there will be no traveling around to schools and speaking in assemblies. COVID has effectively burned that to the ground for me. Now you might think that that would open up my schedule. I'm afraid quite the opposite is true. I am actually more scrambling to create something new and actually reach more schools than ever. So the megalomania kicked in, and rather than trying to do hundreds of schools every year, I'm going to be trying to do thousands. So yeah, my schedule is going to be a little bit tight, but I still would like to make time for this, especially seeing some of my old friends here. But yeah, I would say Wednesday and Thursday afternoons would be the most likely time, or even evening. I don't know if anybody is down for an evening class, but let me know in the chat section or speak up if you have any specific I need this or can't do that sort of issues.
Well, since nobody's saying anything yet, oh, my brain, I forgot what I was gonna say. Could it be is it a type of class that you want a lot of participation back and forth? Is it a class that if it's gonna not work for a certain person, they could just come in after the fact and watch? Or maybe that's like a different price, or maybe that's a different, that might change the dynamics of the class. But I'm just thinking Wednesday and Thursday afternoons, at least Thursdays, and possibly Wednesdays. Joshua might have some things, but not Monday or Tuesdays. So if it ended up being at the wrong time and we still wanted to participate, I'm wondering if that would be an option.
I would say absolutely yes. The way I see it going is we will probably have an actual class, right? The hour and a half, whatever, that happens at Wednesday at 2:30, 2 o'clock. I don't know. And I do feel like it's important that there actually be kids there who can ask questions that I can interact with. I feel like that's part of the magic. However, I think something we're trying to do here is record those things and have them available so that people could then just watch the videos anytime they need to, and still turn in, their writing assignments or whatever. Maybe we'll have some special time on a different day where people can maybe share some of their best work, do something of a showcase, things of that nature, so that other people have a chance to participate. But no, from the very beginning, there has been the idea that there would be a class, but we would also be creating, for lack of a better word, a product. We're going to try to bottle it so it can be distributed a little bit wider.
Is this going to be just like a once a week class, or is it going to be like twice a week, or what? Because I would love it if it was like 2 days a week even. That would be cool, but I'm good with 1 day too.
I understand. I would also think that was really cool. You have to understand, this is something that I do for fun. This has seldom been a significant part of my income or anything like that, but it is something that I very much enjoy. So the more the better would be my view on that. That being said, like I said, I do have a lot that I need to figure out as far as my book marketing that is going to take priority. I would say at this moment in time, all I could really commit to would be one actual class per week and possibly a little check-in. Like if we had class on Wednesday, then maybe we have like a quick little 15-minute Zoom check-in on Monday to say, remember, you're supposed to do this. How's that going? Anybody hit any roadblocks, or you just forget about it? And maybe just try to solve some of the problems before actually. Now, I don't think that there would be any new instruction necessarily on that check-in day, or I got to be honest, I may not even be able to pull off the check-in day, but that's what I think is most likely. Probably one day of actual instruction, the whole bit, and then maybe a secondary check-in day sort of a thing to kind of give a little bit of extra help.
Can you see, Mr. Conrad, the chat? You want me to read it to you?
Stand by. Okay, there we go. I can now see the chat. Was there a question on there? Or is that just the I guess, was there something in particular that you wanted me to look at?
No, just I wondered if you'd be able to get kind of people's preferences on days and times, or if I send those to you. Or anyway, it's good. I'm glad you can see it. We can chat more too.
Gotcha. Yeah, looks like we have a mix of things. Even people willing to do a Saturday class. That would actually be quite interesting. I think a Saturday would probably be a good day for like a showcase or something like that. But I'm afraid I probably would not be able to do consistent Saturdays myself. So yeah. All right. Anything else anybody wants to bring up, or any other questions, comments, emotional outbursts, death threats, anything of that nature? Anyone?
We could talk about this more later, but cost, and I'm guessing it wouldn't be connected to my Tech High since those classes are already supposedly submitted, although there can be changes, I think, this month. But I don't know if Harmony's figured out any of those details already.
We can do it through My Tech High. They've been accepting it as long as we've got the website up and the class description up there. And yeah, you would have to just change your schedule. But it's still early enough that hopefully by the time we can get the details finalized and you can submit it through My Tech.
Okay, because that could also help with recruiting more people and telling people they can still make a change on their schedules, or the new people.
Yeah. And cost is a great question. I'd love to be able to have it to fit.
It might depend on how many people we have, or
I know, fit into My Tech budget and pay Mr. Conrad $1 million. So yeah. I don't know.
He does think big.
Yeah, it is something where I'm afraid it's why I've pretty much always partnered with someone. Usually that was Mrs. Kisby. Harmony's kind of stepping up to fill that role, partially because I'm not good at that part. I tend to go too big or too little, and I tend towards the extremes. I'm the same thing, either, yeah, how do we make $1 million at this? Or it's fine, happy to help, don't charge anything. So yes, I tend to go from either free to overcharging, and I have a hard time with that middle. So I generally leave it up to people whose brains work a little bit better to actually find the appropriate compromise in there and actually know what the value is.
So the ideal, I think, would be to be able to find enough people that the class isn't too huge, or even if we can recruit other people that just want to buy the videos after or whatever too. And so the class isn't too huge, but we can still it's big enough that we can do our like $300 My Tech High budget or close to that and still make it worth his time. So I would love to do it around that price range for the year, the 300. That would be ideal in that price range. Let's recruit a couple more people though, because even if we have 10 people on here, you know, there might be half normally, I don't know, that are going to actually commit and go for it. So, yeah.
I think if we open it up to the Davis County homeschoolers or just any homeschoolers, period, it doesn't have, since it's online, it doesn't have to be like you guys are down in St. George now.
Right.
So I think we could easily get a lot more people, but that's going to be the problem is if there's a cap for the core group.
Yeah, I think let's pitch it out there and then we can kind of talk to Mr. Conrad as to how many we think is too many on a live call and where they won't get value. But please help me advertise. Please, 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 because when I see an online course, I go, are my kids going to want to do that? But if my friend comes and tells me, this guy's amazing, your kids are going to love him, watch this video, you know, and check him out. And if you feel so prompted, come do it, then I'm 1,000 times more likely to check it out and sign up for the class rather than just write it off as some other online course.
Agreed.
Something that occurs to me, because I hate capping things, but I also understand the benefit of a smaller group, a little bit more camaraderie. So this is just me spinning ideas here, but I imagine we could have a smaller group, and to be honest, I think most of you would know who you are. The ones that, yeah, we've worked together in the past, and so we would be able to get that good back and forth going, good discussion to essentially increase the quality of the videos. But then everyone outside of that, we do the videos and then possibly have once a month or once every 2 weeks or something like that, switch out the group. You know, so we have our core group every Thursday, but, you know, every third Thursday or something like that, we have a different group. And so we're able to cycle in some of those. Now, they may not be there every week, but at least that's something that they will get, you know, at some point they do get a live interaction with the teacher. So it's not all videos, you know, for someone that would be mostly videos, but still maintain some sort of thing in there. Now, the other question that comes to my mind is there anyone who could, I don't know how else to say this, be my assistant in some of this? Because honestly, if the numbers started to get bigger, there would be some management type things that might start to fall a little bit outside my wheelhouse. Just again, that whole organization thing, it's not mine. As much as it pains me to admit the weakness, I don't think I could well even keep track of 50 kids all trying to turn in writing assignments. And I would feel incredibly guilty if I were to forget someone. So yeah, we might need an organized person in the mix at least.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Harmony or I probably both would be willing to help you.
Well,
as far as looking at papers though, that doesn't fall under mine very well.
I'm willing to do like what I got to do to get my kids an awesome class and, you know, excited about it. I'm also, organization's not my favorite thing. You know, I figured out this Zoom thing, but I'm not like even a technical pro or anything. And so, yes, anyone who's watching this even recording, let us know if that's something that you're like feeling. Email. I have my email in the chat. Sorry. So, a couple thoughts. Let's see if I can remember them all. So a possibility, I have been on recordings or calls where there's thousands of people and you know you are only watching, you're not getting to participate that day, but you can type your questions in or you can email questions in. And then, so you still kind of get a live fill, but you're not like having your, or you can schedule in a day to ask your question. So next Wednesday, I get to ask my question and he can help me out. Or we can have smaller groups, just throwing all my brain out here, smaller groups of not even you, but they're reading each other their work that they've done. And they're kind of saying, oh, well, let's take these things Mr. Conrad said to look for and let's help me, you know, help each other from the outside, look for these things that we were taught to look for in class. Reading them to each other, getting some ideas, rewriting them before it's like Mr. Conrad has to read 1,000 papers. It sounds like a nightmare to me. But anyway, so maybe there's some other things we can do on there with smaller groups of kids meeting together, or, you know, like with a parent moderator or something like that. So just a bunch of random ideas.
I think there's some really good ideas in there. And in fact, I thought about the whole idea of emailed questions or questions in the chat, because that's also something that we could incorporate very easily into our, I think we were calling it our check-in date, you know, maybe the Monday afternoon, something like that. You know, we check in with everybody, but then we could also take some of those questions and yeah, have it be just a quick, hey, people ask these questions, here's your quick answers, especially if it's something that's going to help them have their project ready by the Wednesday or Thursday date.
So I think let's grow it as big as we can, and we'll worry about how to make it awesome for everybody then.
I agree.
I've seen things that are amazing experience, great value, and thousands of people on there. We'll figure it out.
And the more people you get, the more you'll get people that have those talents we're needing.
All right, I am complete. Mr. Conrad, you have any last words?
I feel like there's a lot of potential here. I think that we've had some really good ideas in here today, and I do think there's the potential for it to be something that can serve a greater number of people. And yeah, I think at this point we just need to nail some of those details down and actually have some feedback from people and see what sort of interest there is in the community. And once we know those things, then we can make some more definite plans.
Great.
I think it'd be cool.
Awesome. Okay, well then we will close up. I have my email in there, so if you're interested and want to stay in the loop, make sure you email me and I will make sure I get you details and take any questions and comments, and we'll stop the recording and say goodbye.